How is it going, Databytes? Is No Data here, and welcome back to another episode of Roblox Assassin. Today on Assassin, we are going to be talking about something pretty interesting. We are going to be talking about an update that actually happened a couple months ago, and this was a pretty controversial update. This update was pretty controversial. It was reverted back, but it was pretty controversial, and it brought up some pretty interesting discussion topics. Now, I should clarify that cases are not gone from Assassin yet, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be removed anytime soon. However, Prisman did do this little update as sort of an experiment, and it kind of seems like he wants to bring Assassin into that direction. So first of all, let's talk about the actual update. What happened? What update am I talking about? So Prisman actually has intentions to remove cases from the game entirely. Now, to a lot of people who have been playing Assassin for a long time, that might seem pretty surprising and a terrible idea, but he does have a pretty good reason to do so. So we are just really going to talk about this update, what happened with this update, what is Prisman trying to do, why is he trying to do it, and if cases were to be removed from Assassin, what impact would it have on the economy? How would Assassin change as a whole because of that update? Again, this happened quite a few months ago, but I never really made a full detailed video on it until now. So in this video, I'm kind of going to go into detail on what would actually happen if a permanent update like this actually happened. So yeah, guys, if you're excited for this video, then be sure to drop a like on this video. It helps out a whole lot. Also, guys, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more Assassin videos in the future. So on November 19th, 2019, Prisman made a pretty big and controversial update. Obviously, it was just an experiment. He probably wasn't going to keep it forever regardless. But he did try out something new. And what this update actually did was it removed cases entirely. That is right. Every single case, the standard case, the elite case, the heroic case, all of the cases were gone. And to replace the cases, there was actually a timed shop. So basically, instead of cases, there were literally shops. And basically, when you went to the timed shop, you would see a random assortment of knives, all for a random price for a certain amount of time. Probably around 24 hours or so. You can see in this screenshot right here, it's for over 24 hours, but in this screenshot right here, it's actually about 9 hours left. And basically, it was just a random assortment of knives, some exotics, some commons, some rares, some legendaries. This screenshot right here even has the Onyx. It would just be a random group of knives, and you can see that all the knives cost a random number of tokens. And even though it is somewhat random, it does seem like all of the knives sort of have a baseline for the number of tokens that it costs, but it kind of fluctuates. Like you can see in this screenshot right here, pretty much all the commons seem to cost a little bit over 100, right? But Marble costs 116 tokens, and Energy Fade costs 139 tokens. So it's kind of random, but it does try to stay a little bit consistent when it comes to the pricing of the knives. But again, for this system in particular, it does seem kind of random what knives actually appear. Again, in this screenshot in particular, this guy happened to see an Onyx, a Gilded, an Epic Red, a Hazard, a Rainbow Plasma, and, you know, there should be more if he scrolls down, but it does seem to be somewhat random. And then once that timer there runs out, those knives will be removed from the shop and then replaced with another group of knives. And basically, you know, pretty much all of the unboxable knives will get a chance at some point. So it will basically just keep rotating through all the knives with somewhat random prices. But again, they are generally the same. Commons seem to be about 100 plus. Legendaries seem to be a little bit over 1500. But basically what the time shop is basically you would get a random assortment of knives for a random price every single day. So you can choose to buy them or not buy them. And if you don't see the knife that you want, then you kind of have to wait until the time runs out. And then hopefully the knife you were looking for will appear and you'll be able to buy it. Now again, for a lot of people who've been playing Assassin for years, this seems kind of shocking. But let's first ask ourselves, why did Prisman do this? Why did he suddenly make this change after like 3.5 years of Assassin existing? Well, when you think about it, and a lot of people might not realize this, but when you think about it, the cases in Assassin are kind of like loot boxes. So you guys probably know a lot about loot boxes. in most games they're kind of frowned upon. You know, most people do not really enjoy loot boxes. It's very frowned upon by a lot of people. So again, a lot of you guys probably already know what loot boxes are, but in case you don't know, it's basically something that you buy for usually real money. You know, you spend real money on it, and then you basically get something random out of it. A very popular example is Overwatch. Overwatch has had loot boxes for quite a while. I don't really follow Overwatch, so I don't know if they still have loot boxes, but that was definitely a thing for quite a while. I believe up until a year ago, Fortnite actually had loot boxes in the form of piñatas, I think. Again, I don't really follow the games all that much, but those are some examples of loot boxes in video games. And of recent years, these loot boxes have been kind of frowned upon because really you are paying money to potentially get something random, and that's kind of a form of gambling, and it can especially be seen as kind of predatory for certain games where, you know, they kind of start you off with some free loot boxes to get you hooked on them, and then you just end up gambling all your money away as a result. So it can be seen as kind of predatory, and it can kind of be seen as a cash grab because, again, it kind of feeds on that gambling side of your brain that really wants you to get the thing that you want. And much like these loot boxes in those games, the cases in Assassin can kind of be seen as loot boxes. I mean, sure, you can grind tokens to open cases yourself, which I always recommend, but for some people, myself included, they spend actual money. They spend Robux, which costs real life money. So by spending money on Robux and then spending those Robux on tokens and then spending those tokens on the Assassin cases, you are basically gambling real life money for these virtual items. And again, because the things that you are getting are random, it can kind of be seen as sort of predatory and manipulative because, you know, you're spending money trying to get something and then you might never get it. You might just have bad luck. So Prisman wants to remove cases from the game because they can be seen as loot boxes, and Prisman personally does not agree with loot boxes. He doesn't feel like they are morally correct because, again, it can be seen as gambling, which can be pretty morally incorrect, especially for a game like Roblox. And not to mention, whether or not this change actually comes into effect, making this possible update is important for the longevity of Assassin, especially considering governments and societies as a whole are kind of not liking loot boxes, so it's very unlikely that this could happen, but there could be some form of legislation that bans loot boxes from video games. Now again, this doesn't currently exist, and I'm not saying that it should, you know, I'm not getting political here, but it is a somewhat possibility as society is starting to basically hate loot boxes more and more. It could come to the point where Prisman might just have to remove loot boxes altogether, whether it's for the law or whether it's for nobody plays games with loot boxes anymore. For any reason, he might actually be forced to remove cases, but at the moment, he basically just wants to do this update because he doesn't like loot boxes. He does not agree with them, and that's a very valid reason. Let me tell you that right now. That is a very valid reason. Again, these cases, whether you like them or not, these cases can be seen as gambling, which, especially for a game like Roblox, can be seen as very predatory and immoral because, you know, Roblox is a game for all audiences, alright? A lot of people play Roblox. Adults, teenagers, and kids alike, a lot of people play Roblox. And for some adult games where you only basically just have adults playing the games and you have, you know, consenting adults with money and they want to spend their money on loot cases, that's still kind of scummy, but it's not that bad. But when you have a broad audience of people playing their game, you definitely don't want the younger audience to be gambling their money or their parents' money on these virtual items that they might not even get because, again, it is random. So that is a very valid reason to remove cases. But the question is, should Prisman actually do this update, and how would it impact the economy if this update actually happened? Now, obviously, again, there really is no right answer to this. Obviously, you know, having cases or a time shop, each of them have their pros and cons. And a lot of people have kind of been arguing back and forth about the morality of the Assassin cases and whether or not it should be removed or not. And it's this sort of back and forth thing. Some people want the cases to stay, but some people also just prefer the time shop. You know, some people don't enjoy that luck and they just want to buy the knives that they can get. So again, both sides have their pros and cons. So let's talk about the pros and cons of having a time shop. So again, with this timed shop that Prismin created, it actually eliminates the factor of luck. You won't have to open a case and just randomly get something and just have to deal with it. If you see a knife in the shop, you can immediately spend money on that and then spend your tokens, and then boom, you automatically have the knife you want. There's no gambling involved, which is great because it does suck when you spend a bunch of money on cases and you don't get the thing that you want. So people can always get the knives that they want. There's no luck involved, so you do not have to worry about, you know, unboxing a legendary from the elite case. We've all had that struggle. Every single person watching these videos had that struggle. And whether you're spending Robux or actually grinding for all your tokens, everyone kind of benefits from the timed shop because, you know, again, you won't have to worry about that element of randomness. And obviously, the better that a knife is, the more expensive it's going to be. So obviously, commons are about 100 plus tokens, whereas something like mythics, they're usually up to 70,000 tokens. So that also creates some form of rarity, because the more rare knives are obviously the more expensive. And this artificial rarity is basically why Prismin has had cases in the game for so long. Prismin has basically used that rarity system, those chances, to create rarity in the game. So obviously something like Legend Hammer, that's very, very hard to unbox because it's a very expensive case and it's only a 2% chance per case. So obviously that kind of sort of makes the Legend Hammer rare. That's sort of one example of rarity in Assassin. So with this time shop, yeah, there really is no randomness, but obviously, you know, the rarer knives are more expensive to buy. But of course, if this update were to happen, it would have a pretty strong economic impact, and that's what a lot of people are scared of. Basically, it's common knowledge by now that usually the knives that are purchasable, whether it's for Robux or for tokens, usually the knives that are purchasable are not very valuable compared to the knives that you can only get from the cases. A very, very good example of that is the bundles that Prismin has pretty much every month or so. And with these bundles, you can basically buy an exotic knife for about 500 Robux to 800 Robux. Obviously, you know, the longer bundles are more expensive, but time and time again, we have seen that those knives are not very valuable. Bundle knives are not very valuable because there's no luck involved. You can just buy it immediately. So everybody kind of buys them, and then they're just not very valuable as a result because everyone just bought them with their money. They automatically got the weapon that they wanted. So as a result, a lot of people end up buying the bundles, so they're not very rare in the future. So that's kind of the concern when it comes to removing cases from the game, because in that situation, you buy every single knife, every single exotic and mythic and dream, you buy every single one of those. So theoretically, the value of all those knives are going to go down because you're going to be able to buy all of them. So that's what people are kind of worried about. They're worried that all of the unboxable knives, quote unquote unboxable, they're not going to be unboxable very soon, they're going to be purchasable, but you know what I mean, all of those knives are going to go down in value. And I've put a lot of thought into this. Again, this update happened a couple months ago, so obviously I put a lot of thought into it, and here's what I think would happen to the economy if something like this were to happen. Now again, a lot of people are worried that the tier 1 exotics are going to drop in value as a result. And I agree with that. I believe that could happen because again, a lot of people are buying these knives, so they are going to go down in value. However, when it comes to the tier 1 exotics, you're really not going to see a numerical value change for those tier 1 exotics in particular. And the reason for that is tier 1 exotics are kind of the bare minimum when it comes to value. That's kind of the baseline value when it comes to value as a whole. You know, tier 1 exotics, we count value in tier 1 exotics for every single knife. So for example, Bat Scythe. Bat Scythe is worth 10 tier 1 exotics. So basically 10 exotics that you can unbox or craft with legendaries, 10 of those put together adds up to the value of a Bat Scythe. So if the value of tier 1 exotics go down in value, then they're still going to be worth one exotic. You know, one exotic is one exotic. You can't really change the value of one exotic. The only other way you can quantify the value of an exotic is by 6 legendaries. Everyone kind of knows that 1 rare is worth 4 commons, 1 legendary is worth 5 rares, and 1 exotic is worth 6 legendaries. And that's one of the very few things of Assassin that are constant. 1 exotic is worth 6 legendaries because you use 6 legendaries to craft an exotic. The only time that would ever change is if Prisman changes the crafting so that you need more or less legendaries to craft an exotic. But even if there is hypothetically more tier 1 exotics in circulation, the tier 1 exotics themselves are kind of going to decrease in value, but at the same time they also aren't. They're going to stay at 1 exotic. You really can't change that because again, tier 1 exotics are kind of the bare minimum. You can't really go below that. So yeah, tier 1 exotics are still going to be worth 1 exotic, but of course the value of tier 1 exotics could go down over time. So what does that mean for the economy? Well, if an update like this happened where, you know, Prisman removed cases and you could buy the knives, I think we would basically see something like inflation in the Assassin economy. So again, the value of tier 1 exotics are going to go down. So as a result, because tier 1 exotics are worth less than what they used to be, the value of unobtainable knives are going to go up in value. And that's kind of just basic economics. Just think of how it works in real life. Like, you know, $1 is worth $1. You know, you can't really change the value of $1 in that aspect. $1 is always worth $1. However, if there's a lot of dollars in the economy, you know, a lot of money is printed, if there's a lot of dollars, the value of $1 goes down, so prices go up. So that's why, you know, prices go up, minimum wage goes up, and that's basically how inflation works in the real world. So, you know, if we had an update like this where we just see more tier 1 exotics, we would kind of see something like that. You know, 1 exotic is still going to be worth 1 exotic, but the value of 1 exotic is going to go down. So as a result, the, you know, prices, quote unquote, the prices or values of the other unobtainable knives are going to go up in value. And I also believe that unboxable and craftable mythics and dreams are also going to go down in value. Because again, if it was something that was previously unboxable, you can just buy it whenever you want. And if it's something that's craftable, you know, you can buy the ingredients whenever you want. Well, not whenever you want because, you know, it's a time shop. But you can buy the ingredients whenever you have the opportunity, and then you can craft whatever you need pretty easily. So yeah, if cases were removed from Assassin, it would have an impact on the economy, but I don't think it would have a huge impact like everyone's saying. A lot of people are kind of treating it like all the knives are going to go down in value. But really, if this happens, I just think there's going to be more of the same that we are already seeing. Unobtainable knives go up in value, and unboxable and craftable knives go down in value. And those rules have always applied to Assassin. Even with cases in the game, those rules have always applied. You know, unobtainable knives go up, and obtainable knives go down. So if this change were to happen, we would just see more of the same, just probably a bit exaggerated. Because again, if the actual value of 1 exotic goes down, then, you know, the value of unobtainable knives are going to go up because it's going to cost more exotics to equal its original value. Which is really not a bad thing economically. Again, a lot of people love those value changes. That is something a lot of people like to see. People love when those unobtainable knives end up going up in value. So personally, from an economic standpoint, I don't really see a huge issue with cases being removed. A lot of people are afraid that it's going to destroy the economy somehow. But if I'm being honest, it's really not going to change that much at all. A lot of people are getting these unboxable knives on a regular basis. There are so many players playing Assassin that these unboxable knives are circulating in the economy constantly. A bunch of people are unboxing Legend Hammer. A bunch of people are getting Epic Red. A bunch of people are getting Gilded. A bunch of people are unboxing Spiders. So really, if we take away the cases, it's not going to make a huge difference. It's just some people might get those knives faster. But again, if people get those knives faster, it's really just going to be more of the same. The unboxable and craftable knives are going to go down, and the unobtainable exotics are going to go up, you know, even more than they already are. So if cases were removed from Assassin, it honestly wouldn't have a huge impact on the economy, especially not to the extent that people are afraid of. But anyway, I also wanted to hear your guys' opinions while making this video. So I actually did make a post on the community tab here, and I basically asked you guys, how do you feel about Assassin cases being removed? Why or why not? So we're actually going to read some of the comments here, and I'm kind of going to react to your guys' thoughts in this video. I thought that would kind of be a cool thing to do. So I'm going to read some of the comments. I hearted some of them. That doesn't mean I agree with them. I just, you know, liked heart comments just because. This guy says no, because some people play the game to trade, and making you buy knives would ruin trading, and there would be no sense of achievement when buying knives compared to buying a crate. Now, this part right here, I kind of agree with, because Game Theory kind of made a video about this. It is scientifically proven that, you know, you kind of get like good feelings when you open a loot case. Like when you buy a loot box or when you buy an Assassin case, you kind of get that dopamine, which is kind of chemical in your brain that makes you feel good. And it was scientifically proven that people love those sort of random things. Like if you always got a reward for something, you wouldn't really come back to it as much. But if it's random, then, you know, you're a lot more likely to sort of buy that product. And again, it was scientifically proven, no matter what you get, your brain releases the feel-good chemicals just by buying a case. You know, if you buy an Assassin case, you're already excited, you're already happy about that, regardless of what you get. You know, just the fact that you're getting something random, that's exciting to the human brain. That's exciting to a lot of people, just scientifically. So scientifically, this guy is right. It just wouldn't feel as good just to buy any knife you want as compared to unboxing it from a case. But at the same time, cases want you to have that feeling so that you have an incentive to buy more, and then you're basically just being a puppet on a string and just giving more money to get what you want. So yes, it does feel good to buy a case, but at what cost? But I do agree, you know, part of Assassin would kind of be missing without the cases. If Assassin removed cases, I feel like that would mess up the value and rarity of knives. So in my opinion, I don't feel like they should, but if they have, then I hope it's somewhat improved. Yeah, the time shop, keep in mind, the time shop that Prisman created, he created it in like a couple of hours. So this is definitely in its very early stage. But yeah, like I talked about, it would change the value and rarity to some degree, but not to the extent that people think that this time shop would. Again, people are kind of scared that the time shop is going to change everything, and I just personally don't agree with that. I believe that it's reasonable for Assassin to remove cases. Loot boxes are frowned upon and are seen as a shady way of monetization and borderline gambling. By having a time shop, it will give an incentive to not only log in every day and see the shop, but as well as a way to save up coins instead of wasting them on luck. And that's a pretty good point. You know, again, with this time shop, you can kind of look every day just to see what's there. Maybe it's something that you need. Maybe you can just take a look at a knife and say, oh, I kind of need that. I'll take that. I can afford that. And it does also kind of encourage people to save up to kind of see what is available at the shop during the time. But again, it's really just not the same as, you know, physically unboxing a knife and just getting something random and it's happened to be something that you want. That's always exciting. That's always a great feeling. Yes, I think Prisman should replace the old and put new knives in them, because we had the same cases for a while now. I think we need some new cases for new knives. That would be kind of interesting. As long as they don't bring out Holiday Saber, I'm good. Yeah, they're not going to bring back event knives, which, you know, event knives, whether or not they should be included in the time shop is also a discussion in itself, because events are very important, and honestly, I feel like it's kind of important for these event knives to have that kind of sort of random luck factor to it, you know what I mean? YouTubers make a lot of content opening cases. See, I agree with that, and that's kind of my struggle as a YouTuber. I'm gonna say my own personal opinion during the end of the video, but that is a pretty big issue when it comes to removing cases. I'll never be able to make an unboxing video again. Not for Assassin at least, and no one else is going to be able to, and that was a pretty important part when it came to content creation, because that's kind of something that not a lot of other people can do. Like, if you don't make videos on the game, then it can kind of seem rather pointless to spend all that money on those virtual items. But for me, it's like, okay, I'm making a video about getting those items. So not only does it have a purpose, but I'm also kind of getting my money back from ad revenue. And in the process, I'm entertaining a lot of people. So that kind of gives me a good incentive to, you know, do those unboxings. Because again, a lot of people can't afford them, or it's pointless for a lot of people, but a lot of people just want to see those unboxings. A lot of people just like to watch someone else's experience. People like to watch other people's reactions to getting really good knives. And if you remove cases, you could end up taking that away a bit. Now, this comment right here is very interesting. They should do both. They should keep all the cases, but add a special shop where you could buy and sell knives to other people in your server. Example, you sell a mythic for 20,000 tokens. Someone would buy that mythic and you would get 20,000 tokens. That's a really cheap mythic, by the way. you should be trying to get more than 20,000 tokens. And if no one buys it for a certain amount of time, it would go back to the person who sold it. There would also, a bit of a typo, there would also be special deals for knives on the market for tokens, like an event knife. This would be a cool update. Now, I should point out that, you know, for events, this kind of happens already. We've seen this with Candy Slayer and Festive Scythe most recently. You know, some knives are just in the shop for a limited amount of time for tokens. But again, this guy's comment is very interesting. I think it would be really cool if we basically just had both. Like, honestly, I wouldn't see an issue with just having both a time shop and cases. So that kind of gives you the option to gamble, but at the same time, if you don't want to gamble, you could just save up your tokens and, you know, just buy the knife right there in the shop. And maybe it'll be a little bit more expensive if you buy it. So basically, you know, you'll have to grind a little bit more for it to be guaranteed, but it could be guaranteed. Or at the same time, you can roll the dice for a cheaper price, which is a nice rhyme, but at the same time, you're probably not gonna get what you want. I don't really know about selling your own knives. That is kind of an interesting system, but I don't really see that happening. But honestly, just adding in the time shop while keeping the cases is a really good compromise in my personal opinion. But again, you still kind of have the loot cases in the game, which is kind of counterproductive because we're making this system for the sole purpose of removing the cases for good. But anyway, guys, let me know your personal opinions because again, there really is no wrong answer to this. So what do you think about this potential update? Should Prisman remove the cases? Should he not? It's a very interesting discussion topic, and again, there is no right or wrong answer. Now, before we end this video, I just want to give my personal opinion on this topic. Again, this is my own opinion, and this is very opinionated, but, you know, I didn't really share it back in November, so I do feel like it's a pretty good idea to share it now. Now, personally, as a content creator, I am always going to prefer cases. Honestly, I'm just always going to prefer cases because they're honestly just really good content to make. A lot of people love unboxing videos and they're really fun to make, even when it's not a very successful unboxing and it's very annoying when you don't get the things you want. It's honestly just very fun to make videos about these cases. And if cases are removed from the game, then that's kind of one video topic that I can never do again. So personally, I will always prefer to keep the cases. But if Prisman ends up removing the cases, I definitely understand, and I would support him all the way if he decided to remove cases. Because again, he has a very valid reason to not like cases. You know, gambling is not good. So if Prisman ended up removing cases in favor of a time shop, that is totally fine by me. He has a very good reason to do so, and even if I personally don't agree with him, I will still support his decision and, you know, go along with whatever Assassin will do next. However, in my personal opinion, I feel like if we're going to have a shop in Assassin, I honestly don't think that it should be a time shop. And again, this is my personal opinion. Obviously, having a time shop has its own pros and cons, because again, you might return to the game just to see what's available. But personally, I would prefer to have one big grand shop of all the knives in the game, and it can basically be separated into tiers. So, you know, let's say, you know, I go to the shop, right? I go to knives, and let's say instead of cases, it's by tiers. So maybe this can be commons, and this one can be rares, you know, legendaries, commons, mythics, and so on and so forth. So, you know, oh, I want to buy a common. So, you know, you could click this, and then you would see the full list of commons that you can buy in the game. and then you could just buy it for, you know, a fixed price, maybe like 150 tokens, give or take. So, you know, the knives could be separated in commons and rares and legendaries and stuff like that. And the reason that I would rather have one big shop is just, you know, as a player, I feel like it's kind of unsettling to not be able to buy a knife that you want. Like, let's say that I want to buy a purple. Let's say I want to buy a purple, so, you know, I grind a little bit. Oh, I have enough coins for a purple, and then it's not in the time shop. It's like, what do you do then? Like, I want to get a purple. Oh, sorry, it's not in the time shop. You know, check back in 24 hours. It's just, it kind of hurts as a player to not be able to buy the exact knives that you want at any time. So you kind of just have to wait for, you know, maybe 24 hours, and then maybe it will be in circulation. Maybe you'll have to wait another day. Because, again, it's kind of luck-based. And for other people, like, let's say you're a new player. You're new to Assassin, you don't know what the heck is going on. And then you kind of see the time shop, and there's not really a lot of knives on there. And, you know, most of them are just reskins of basics, and maybe a couple of exotics and a mythic. You know, that just kind of drives players away, kind of, sort of. Because they don't really see all the knives that Assassin has to offer. Whereas, you know, if someone new goes to Assassin now and they look at the cases, it's like, okay, these are the knives that you can unbox. These are the knives in the cases. You can get these. You can get the Legend Hammer. You can get the knives in these cases. Obviously, a new player wouldn't know about any of the unobtainable knives yet, but just as a new player, seeing all these new knives would kind of excite you to play the game. And then you would feel excited to, you know, try and get something. Maybe not like Legend Hammer or anything, but, you know, it might excite you to just open one heroic case just to see what you get out of it. Because, you know, all the knives look cool. I don't know. And yeah, I just feel like having a time shop is a bit of a struggle. Like, here's another example. Let's say, you know, you're playing Assassin, and you check the time shop, and you see, Beam Core for 70,000 tokens. So it's like, oh, I want to get that for 70,000 tokens, and you only have 284 tokens. So I mean, you can try and grind for it, but if you grind all day, you can really only get up to 10,000 tokens, I tend to find. So if you see a mythic and you only have like a very small amount of tokens, you already know you're not going to get the Beam Core before the time runs out, and then you're just going to have to wait for it to come back into circulation. And you know, it doesn't help, honestly. It just doesn't really encourage you to get that mythic because you know it's going to be gone before you can get the tokens anyway. And that can even apply to exotics because, you know, these are like over 10,000 tokens. So if you have a small amount of tokens, you might not even be able to get an exotic in time. So that can kind of be a struggle with the time shop. But if you have one big grand shop, you can buy any knife you want for a constant price, no random fluctuation. That's honestly kind of annoying. So yeah, that's just my personal opinion. Again, I would rather keep the cases, but if you're gonna have a time shop, that's totally fine. I would still like this game even without the cases. Just a timed shop seems kind of tedious, and it's kind of just gonna drive players away. But again, Prisman did only make that in a couple of hours time, so there's definitely room for improvement when it comes to the time shop. And also guys, one more thing about this topic. While I do think that this can possibly work for tier 1s, when it comes to events, I honestly just think that we should have cases, and there's really no way around that. Bad luck does suck, but I feel like for events, you know, those event knives need to have that element of randomness in order to have that knife valuable. I mean, I guess you could keep it on sale for a very, very small amount of time, but, I mean, you guys already know that a lot of people save up their tokens for these events. When it comes to Candy Slayer and Festive Scythe, it kind of worked, because Prisman didn't make any purchasable knives until, you know, we were kind of halfway into the event. So a lot of people kind of spent their tokens on cases already, so it kind of worked out. Whereas if everything was purchasable right from the get-go, it wouldn't be that valuable. It would be less valuable, actually. So I really think that we do need that element of randomness in order to have event knives be valuable. Again, with the exception of adding purchasable knives a little later into the event, just like Candy Slayer and Festive Scythe. Anyway, yeah guys, comment down below what you think. Should Prisman remove cases? Why or why not? What can Prisman do to the time shop to make it better? Comment down below your opinions. I would love to hear them. But yeah, for the time being, do not worry. Cases is still here, and we're probably going to have them for quite a while. But it is a possibility that they could go away. But until then, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Roblox Assassin. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all those other things that YouTube people do. And I will see you guys in the next video. Stay purple.